Hey, Chris, lose my fucking number. Don't ever fucking text me or call me again. You got that? I hope I made myself clear. I texted you back. You know who this is. You fucking call me again. You fucking text me. You send me any mail. Fuck off, asshole.
I've paid thousands of dollars in courses to learn what you're basically teaching on your podcast for free. What you're putting out there is so valuable. So, I just really want to acknowledge you, and I definitely send everyone to your podcast.
You were virtually one of the first mentors that I looked up to and started following. You're always one step ahead of the game. So I just wanted to give you kudos and props for that, because lots of people are watching, lots of people are learning from it.
Tucker and the whole TTM crew, Dan and Chris, thanks so much for your support. I love what you guys do, and a huge fan. Having this support's huge, so I'm grateful for that.
What's up, everybody out there in listener land? It's episode 293 of the Real Dealz podcast. And as always, I am your host, Tucker Merrihew, and I am back. Took a little vacay last week, went down to Cabo Wabo, and I made it back just in time, though. I felt bad for some of the folks that were flying in as we were flying out. That last day, they had a bunch of rain and thunderstorms coming in, and I thought, man, it would really suck to fly all the way to Cabo for sunshine and you get rain and thunderstorms for, it was going to be like the next 3 or 4 days on the day that we left. So the locals were none too pleased, as well as you could imagine, but we made it out. We thought maybe they were going to ground our plane due to lightning that was off in the distance and all the thunderstorms that were rolling in, but we made it out by the skin of our teeth. So I'm back this week, and I've got another great show for you. But before we get into all that, couple of stories, I guess. I'll meander a little bit with this show, but I gotta say, going down to Mexico, I've been to Cabo a bunch of times. We used to do company trips down there back before kids and when life was a little simpler, at the end of every year, which was a great time. We'd stay on the harbor and, just go party with everybody and show everybody a good time. It was always fun. But on this particular trip, we had a driver that drove us to and from the airport, and he also happened to be a driver for Dana White a few weeks prior. So we got to hear all kinds of cool stories about how he drove Dana White for like a week, and Dana White gave him like a $2,000 tip. So apparently he was a big fan of Dana White. So I guess Dana White's a pretty good guy. He said that he tipped everybody really well. He was very nice to everybody. So he's doing good things for reputation. But beyond that, I got into some pretty deep conversations with our driver, just kind of about life down there in Mexico. And I think a lot of us know, the reason why a lot of people come to the United States for opportunity and pay and all those things. But to hear it firsthand of exactly what their opportunities are down there, it was really interesting. And it was a good reminder. So I wanted to kind of echo it on this week's show. But, the overall theme is that, man, once you kind of step away and you come back, you realize we're pretty soft here in America right now. Most people, they couldn't hack it in a lot of other countries, that's for sure. We've been conditioned to just be really soft, I guess would be a good way to put it. And, a couple things that, I was told that I thought, wow, it's crazy, is that, most of the really good jobs are in the hospitality business, as you would expect. And the reason being is because they're tip-oriented, right? But in order to get good tips, you got to be able to speak good English. Just like, I was talking to our driver at length because he spoke really good English. And so by speaking good English, you connect with the tourists more, your customers, and that gets you a better tip. So he obviously got a great tip out of me, got a great tip out of Dana White. But we were talking about all the construction going on down there. So this does tie into real estate, of course. And they're building like 15 new hotels, all over down around Cabo, in and around Cabo, really. And we were talking about what the guys get paid who are on the job sites, because these guys work like 7 days a week. Our driver hadn't taken a day off in 2 months, which is, for American standards, seemed crazy. For them, it seemed totally normal. But I was like, what are these plumbers and electricians and, these tradesmen who here in the States are basically charging a fortune right now because they're so in demand, but they're also in demand down there. They've got guys moving in from mainland Mexico over to Cabo to kind of fill these positions and take these jobs. But I was like, what do these guys get paid? And they're licensed, fully qualified, specialty tradesmen. And the guy told me they're making like $20 a day. And there is no lunch break. You just take, the food to work that you can, and you eat it, whenever you can. And they work from sunup to sundown, and, sometimes even beyond. But $20 a day is what they get paid. And, these are the same guys that are doing the same things that here in America, our electricians are making $55, $65 an hour, let's say on the average, which is basically in 1 hour, they make, over three times, what these guys in Mexico are making in a day. So anyway, it was a real eye opener. You can see why people want to come here, right? You can definitely see that. I was trying to figure out, why don't they pay more down there? And he said it's just the way that it is. And, people don't want to upset the hierarchy of things. And do I think they should be paid more? Probably. But it's the way that it is, and there's probably a lot of pressure, political and otherwise, to kind of keep the status quo down there. But that's why they're building so much stuff down there, because the cost to build is just unbelievably cheap. And they do it so fast as well, because they've got, probably 5 times as many guys on any given job site as we do here in the States. Because if we had that many guys on this job site that I'm sitting in front of right now, we wouldn't make any money. It'd eat up all of our profit and labor costs. There, they can just pack the job sites with people, and they can get the construction done a lot quicker, and ultimately they get it built for a ton cheaper just based on what stuff is. So anyway, it's a reminder that we got it pretty damn good here, folks. And next time you catch yourself complaining, maybe just think about, things could be a little worse. Our driver was a happy guy. He hadn't taken a day off in 2 months. Could you imagine American not getting a day off in 2 months? He'd be whining and bitching and moaning and moping around. So anyway, hopefully that gives you guys a little perspective as we head into this week's show. So that's my story there. This week's show, I've got a really good one for you. We're going to continue our Rock Stars of Real Estate series. And this week, I've got 3 individuals who were great interviews. And really the theme of this week is building a bigger business, right? Getting beyond the solopreneur operation as a real estate investor and building a bigger business. And these 3 guests that I've got this week are prime examples of that. They've done a really good job of that. And so those individuals are Mr. Don Costa, Joe Evangelisti, and Bryan Blankenship, my fellow bowler friend, all of which have amazing businesses, and they're big businesses as well, and they've gone way past the solopreneur stage, some of them way past that. So I think this will be a great show. I think there's a lot of wisdom in these original interviews, and we're going to pluck out some of the best parts of them and let you guys absorb them. So that's going to be this week's show as we continue this Rockstars of Real Estate series. But before we get into that, a couple other things that I want to talk about here in terms of what's going on with me. Obviously, I'm back. I'm doing what we do here at TTM Development Company. And so I just want to give you a quick update. But number one, we bought a new house right before I left. I'm sitting in front of it right now. We're about to do a walkthrough. Probably going to do a light rehab on this one. It's pretty much rental condition as it sits. And so we're probably just going to clean it up a little bit, put it to market at a little bit more aggressive price. And it should get absorbed really quickly. It's 3 bedrooms. It's 2 baths. And it's got a big lot. It's in a great part of Portland. It should sell really quickly. So we're going to sit here, or as I sit here, I'm waiting to do our walkthrough here after I get done recording. I'm excited to get this one fluffed, buffed, and back on the market as quickly as we can. And then beyond that, we also inked a new deal while I was gone, which was nice to hear. Got landed in Mexico. Got a text or email from Chris, said, hey, we got that deal locked up. And it's actually a deal that we went and looked at probably 8 months ago, something like that. And the guy ended up selling the lot next door. He owned basically the house and a lot. He'd confirmed the lot next door and then sold it off. But he had the house, and he was a really squirrely dude. And it was just, we had a hard time pinning him down. We were trying to buy the house before, but he was just one of those guys that's just super squirrely. I think he was just stoned out of his mind most of the time too. But he called us back, and we've been, we follow up with people all the time. But he called us back because we kept mailing him, even though we weren't able to put something together, and we just, tried to stay relevant to him, as well as a bunch of other people that we talked to over the course of time, and we just can't put a deal together with. We'll do 2 things generally. One is we continue to mail them as just a reminder, and then we'll do, blast RVMs to people that we've talked to on a fairly regular basis, just to kind of stimulate more conversation with him. And so in this particular case, it was the continuing of mailing him that then got him to call us back. And he said, hey, would you honor that price that you had offered, 8 months, a year ago, whatever it was? And we said, yeah, we think so, but we got to come out, check it out, just make sure it's still the same house. Nothing crazy happened. And so Chris went out there, checked it out. It is the same house, needs the same amount of work. It's in a great spot, though. It's got a main floor and a full height basement, so you could actually do 2 apartments there to rent out, or you could renovate the house and just sell it as one. So definitely some opportunity there, but we got that inked while I was gone, so that's always nice. And we got a bunch of other leads coming in. It's kind of that time of year where some people turn it on, some people turn it off, and we're going pedal to the metal to try and finish this year strong with all the marketing that we're doing. We're actually doubling down on a lot of marketing, adding some additional marketing channels. We're hooking up with, Danny, who was on a previous show, to do some cold calling for us. So we're going to kind of lay the tracks with that, and then we'll kind of open it up for you guys after we lay the tracks and just kind of take our experience with it and make sure that we kind of understand this world of cold calling and handing off leads and all that. And then obviously we're going to do a show on it and kind of talk about how it all went. But we're adding that in. We're doing a bunch of mailing on top of that. But our lead flow's been really good. But on top of all of that, there's a new thing that's kind of happening in this world of real estate investing, right? And it also involves real estate brokerages, and that is the world of iBuyers, right? I've done shows on it, I've talked about it, but what's different now is that we have our iBuyers, which are like the Open Doors and the Zillows of the world and the Knox, right? They are their own thing, their own iBuyer. They want traffic to their sites, for people to put in their information, for them to give offers, and for them to buy property. Well, on the flip side of that, there are large national brokerages that also want to be an iBuyer, but they don't want to be the ones buying the houses. And so these large national brokerages are building these platforms, sort of like iBuyer.com, which, by the way, I was on, they have a podcast I was on it this past week, if any of you guys have ever heard that show. But they basically want to be the Travelocity of iBuyers. And so they represent a bunch of buyers who then have what they call these buy boxes. So you buy certain stuff. That's kind of like your bread and butter, right? So you create these buy boxes that tells people what your bread and butter is in terms of what you want to buy. And so iBuyer.com is kind of that for, a variety of different iBuyers. But there's also these big real estate brokerages that are nationwide that instead of raising capital, trying to run an iBuying operation, all they want to do is create a platform and a place for their agents who may not know how to sell investment grade property otherwise to be able to dump that property onto the platform and have it be absorbed through the platform. So with one of those big brokerages, we are officially the first iBuyer in the Portland metro area for this platform that they've created. We just finally got everything approved. We had to get our proof of funds over to them, fill out a bunch of stuff, and today I'm actually getting on there and I'm kind of completing our buyer box. So anybody that is a part of that brokerage will now have the ability to submit basically their investment grade pocket listings to this iBuyer platform that we're the only buyer on right now. So we're going to see how that goes. The business is growing, it's changing, it's morphing. This is just part of it, and we're just kind of going along for the ride, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But it'll be interesting to see. I think there'll be a lot more of the bigger brokerages like this that have a hand select a handful of iBuyers on their platform, and basically you have agents then bringing you investment grade deals constantly via the platform that those big brokerages set up. So I think that's somewhat of the future of this business. So just a little tidbit for you guys out there, kind of a little pulling back the curtain and letting you guys know what's going on here at TTM. So anyway, that's what's going on with me, the important stuff, the stuff that you might care about. But without further ado, let's get into this week's show with my man Don Costa, Joe Evangelisti, and my bowling buddy, Bryan Blankenship.
All right, Real Dealz podcast listeners, I want to talk quickly about our show's sponsor, Iron Bridge Lending. If you guys have not reached out to Iron Bridge already to talk to them about funding some of your upcoming flip projects, I highly encourage you to do so. I've known the owner of Iron Bridge for a very long time. I've personally borrowed millions of dollars from them over the years to do a number of different projects, and I can say without a doubt, they are the best hard money lending company I have ever come across, and that is the reason why they are the sole sponsor of this show. I've had a lot of other companies reach out to me and and want to sponsor this show, but I just won't do it. I feel like I need to be genuine in who we have sponsoring the show, and it needs to be somebody that I've personally done a ton of business with. So I personally vouch for their ability to be the best, hands down, in the world of hard money lending. You won't find better programs, you won't find better terms, and they're lending or will be lending in over 20 states. So chances are, if you're hearing this in whatever state you're in, it's definitely worth it to check out their website, reach out to them, see if they're lending in your state, and if they are, I would absolutely encourage you to do business with them. Another very cool thing to note is that they have a program for most rehabs where you can actually borrow up to 90% of the purchase price. Now, this is given the fact that you are actually buying a deal, which if you're listening to the show, that means you probably are. But if you have an actual deal on the table, they'll fund up to 90% of your purchase price, and they'll even give you rehab funds on top of that, which means that it only takes 10% down to get into a project, which is unbelievable in the hard money world. So do yourself a favor, reach out to Iron Bridge Lending, have a conversation with them, see if they're a good fit for you and for your next project. I can guarantee you that you'll be happy that you did.
That was the time where it was like, I need a guiding light, and you, Don, were the guiding light in terms of setting up this company and this vision that they wanted to hop on with.
Yeah, definitely. So they bought into it. We met at Starbucks once a week. We went out and looked at competition properties. We kind of game planned on what the company was going to look like and how we we're going to get there, started networking. And just kind of slowly put the pieces together. I mean, that's kind of how we got our start in 2012. And fast forward to today, we have a fairly decent sized organization that does a decent sized volume, and it's a lot of fun now, for sure.
When you say decent sized, I know you're being very modest, but what does that decent size number look like for, say, what's projected for this year?
Our goal for this year is to do 200 properties. So, and that is a combination, and I don't mean transaction, I mean actual properties. And that's going to be a combination of wholesale, and rehab. So this year we added wholesale very heavily to our arsenal. And the end of last year, we started doing a lot of wholetailing, which is we close on it and just turn around and throw it on the market. And then, of course, we're rehabbing. Last year, we did 122 properties. The majority of those are rehabs. The handful of those are wholesales. And so this year we're biting off a big chunk, but we're going for 200. And right now it looks like we may hit that. So
wow,
excited.
That's fantastic. So that, again, you're being fairly modest, but at 200, we'll say not transactions, but property year, it does require a team. Maybe break that down for us and talk about kind of what the different lanes are that you've created within the company to be able to handle that kind of volume and also create that type of volume.
Well, the first thing I want to say is that if you're going to do any kind of volume at all with a team, you have to understand that you, as the guy who puts it in place, has to get out of the way. You have to be willing to delegate and trust people and put people in place that are smart and capable. And that's one of the hardest things, I think, for me that I did, because I'm a control freak. I think like most entrepreneurs, we're scared to death to turn something over to somebody. But it was also the greatest thing I ever did. Once I realized I needed to get out of my own way, that was a game changer for my business. On top of that, we just have a great team. So, right now, as of this year, we have 3 lead managers. We have 3 people answering the phones. We have 3 people doing follow-up. Basically, if they're not answering the phones on the days that drops are hitting, they're doing follow-ups. They're making, 30 plus phone calls each a day on follow-up. We have, in our office here, we have 3 acquisitions managers in this office. And then we do a couple other outlining cities, markets, where I have 3 more acquisitions managers in the different markets we're in. And we have 2 project managers here that handle all of our rehabs. We have an office manager she does our books, our investor relations, and just managing the overall flow of the office. We have a transaction coordinator. We have a sister real estate company with about 7 agents in it, who has a broker who does all of our ARVs on our properties. So we have a pretty solid team that they know what their lane is, they know what they got to do, and they all play a role in making all these pieces come together.
Very cool. So with that, number one comes a fair bit of responsibility on your shoulders. You may be out of the way, so to speak, but the responsibility of potential overhead, we'll call it, on a variety of levels. Are many of these people salaried plus commission? Are they commission only? What's the general, I'm not looking for specifics on what you're paying people, but when you say you've got that many people operating in your office, obviously that can represent a large number in terms of monthly obligation. What does that breakdown look like for you so that you could grow it to this point and still be comfortable?
Well, I didn't start this way. Like I said, at first it was just a couple of us that bought into the whole picture. And, they worked for what I could pay them, and knowing that once I could pay them really, really good, they're going to be taken care of. And then as I saw where we're going to grow, I started hiring. I heard from a buddy of mine, the way he put it was perfect. Hire where you want to be. Not, don't, like, I try to hire where I'm going so that I can train them to be who I need them to be before I get there. Instead of a lot of people where they just get buried and now they're too busy to train anybody. So we started adding people as we wanted to grow. And it wasn't a perfect science, but, we learned to hire the person and not the skill. So everybody that's in a solid position that's like my best team player is somebody that we developed into that position. And, they wouldn't be who they are, I don't think, if we didn't develop them to that position. So our acquisitions are commissioned. The guy who runs all of our ARVs is commissioned. Our project managers are salaried. Our lead intakes are hourly. Plus they get a bump every time we close a contract that they scheduled. And then my office manager is salaried as well. So we run a pretty lean shop, I think, for what we actually pay out. Most of what we pay out is going to be based on performance of some kind, either a bonus or a commission or that kind of thing. So I really try, to be honest with you, I really try to find ways that my team can make money, because I found that the more opportunities I give them to earn, the more money they're going to earn me. So if I, with bonuses and structures and commissions and perks, they're out there, like I told one of my acquisitions guys, I was like, if you get 10 contracts this month, I'll send your family to Disneyland for 3 days. Well, I mean, he's got 9. So, he's trying to get to 15 because he's like, what will you give me for 15? So he's trying to get to 15 by the end of the month. So, if I find ways to take care of them and do things for them, they seem to really bend over backwards on the performance.
Are you doing like pay-per-click? Are you doing some online organic stuff? Are you doing anything else to support the direct mail before we get into the types of deals you guys are really looking for?
We're doing SEO. So basically, just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm at with it, at the beginning of the year, I looked at last year, and I think like most people, I was thinking direct mail was going to die, and my direct mail cost was like, it was climbing, significantly through the last part of the year. And I looked at my organization, and the way I was set up, I had my acquisitions guys answering the phones, booking the appointments, going on the appointments, doing follow-up. And we did really, really, really well last year, but I was looking at that cost go up, and I'm like, we can't sustain this. So I looked at like one of my acquisitions guys, and I had a heart-to-heart with them, and I'm like, you are better suited for dispositions. I want to do wholesale this next year. I'm going to move you to dispositions. I changed his seat. I brought in new blood, new acquisitions people. So when I did that, I basically just turned direct mail on, and that was the only thing I said. Let's master this for this year, and then we'll, as we master this, we'll add something else. So after we kind of got that locked in, we added SEO. This next month, we're putting PPC back into play. So I believe in shaking every bush. That's just, you got to shake every bush. One month, a lot of deals will come from this lane, and the next month it'll be some other lane. So, but we don't have every bush turned on right this second. I really threw my business up against the wall to see like, okay, what can I build from this? Where are the cracks? What systems we got to put in place to fill these cracks? How do we make it run efficient? And that's kind of what we did for the last however many months. So going forward, yes, we're going to be doing PPC, SEO, probate, of course, which is direct mail, and just about every avenue you can market. You have to in this business.
Yeah.
But you got to master one,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Which it sounds like direct mail is the foundation. And honestly, if you guys are sending 50 to 75,000 pieces a month, that's enough to keep the phones ringing for sure.
The phones ring. Yeah.
Yeah. Phones will ring if you're sending 50 to 75K a month in terms of pieces of mail. Right. Regardless, it could be the worst mail piece on the planet. You send that much, You're going to get the phones ring. It really doesn't matter. So with that said, I sent our acquisitions manager over to meet with one of the biggest kind of conveyor belt builders in town last week, because I wanted him to find out what does their box look like in terms of exactly what they want to buy, what they pay the most money for, what fits within their machine. And the reason why I bring that up is because I'm kind of framing the question here for you. For you and your guys' operation, what is that box? What is that machine? What fits best within that? Because there's a whole bunch of different types of projects that we can get involved with as real estate investors. And so as you grow and your business grows and you become a better business owner and real estate investor, you realize what your core competency is, and you try not to deviate too far from that, because it takes your time, your money, your resources, and it basically gets you off the path to making more money and being more successful. So for you guys, what does that box look like?
Well, I'm glad you said that first, because that is the reason why I lost everything in the crash. I was not on the lane where my core competency was being, implemented to its best and fullest potential. And when the market crashed, I wasn't paying attention the way I should have, and that took me down. So, now I really try to stick to that core competency. First and foremost, for us, it's time in projects. We want to be in and out of a project on the average of 100 days from the day that we buy it, rehab it, resell it, and get our check. And our average needs to be 100 days. And that's only skewed because of FHA. We're usually in the 90-day range or so. I don't do new construction in my market. I'm in kind of a more like the rest of the country market where, you're a little higher end. So our cost per square foot, $140, $150 square foot doesn't make sense to add square footage or do that kind of stuff. And the timeline in our market, I don't want to be in a project a year. So my core competency is get in, get out, get paid. I want to turn that money 3 times in a year. That's my goal. And I try to stay in first time, second time buyer price points, essentially is what we're looking at.
What about scope of work?
Scope of work doesn't really bother us too much. We got that pretty dialed in. We can do a full rehab, granted, if you're moving walls and stuff, that's a little different, but we can do roof windows, HVAC, we can do gut kitchens, bathrooms, and everything. And we can be in and out of that project in 4 weeks. Okay. So the way we know we work with GCs, and then we kind of do some outside tray stuff. The way we stack our trades, we're able to move pretty efficiently. At the most we'll be in a project for 6 weeks, and that's a complicated project.
Wow.
So yeah, we really try to make sure that we're staying in on things on a certain amount of time. Something that's going to be overly complicated, if we're going to be in that project for over 2 months, at this point in time, we're trying to wholesale off. We're just trying to stay away from those.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and part of the change in our operation for this year is we were a rehab company, not a wholesale company. And so my mindset, they're two different businesses, right? My mindset on what fits us for rehab and what somebody's willing to buy, they collide. So, because I'm like, that deal doesn't work, and we're finding out we got people that will buy them. So we're locking up stuff that normally I would have freaked out on somebody for locking up, but we're taking and wholesaling it and making money that I never expected to make. So it's actually a pretty cool place to be.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because I've had a couple that I've looked at lately that some of the, we'll call them the bigger shops in town, have pumped out to their list of people. And it's stuff that we saw 3 months prior, right?
Right.
We're like the sniper secret guys that get in there and see it. And I give it my sniff test and I'm like, not really, right? And then the big guys come in, they got to feed the beast. They crank it out. They pump it out to the list. And then like 2 days later, another email comes out that says sold for a price that I'm like, what in the hell is going on? So similar to what you just said, I'm trying to balance now the fact that just because I don't think it passes my sniff test on a deal necessarily that we would want to take down, do, and retail doesn't mean that it doesn't pass somebody's sniff test. And that's been a hard dynamic for me to kind of get over, or just it's a catch point for me, because I look at it from way too real of a perspective of just having so much experience that I'm like, fuck that. I would never do that, but somebody else is like, let's do it. I'm down, and it's been proof of concept. I've seen it happen over and over again. So we've had to start changing the way we look at stuff, just like you mentioned.
Yeah, it's tough. It's two different business models, two different mindsets. The wholesaling side of things, we're buying things where we need to buy them, and then we're throwing them on the market, and we're getting $30,000 or $40,000 more than we paid for them, and we're doing the math, and we can't figure out how they're making money. But I guess at the end of the day, it's not our. Who cares, right? I mean, it's if they're willing to buy it, it's not my place to say no. My job is to capitalize on every marketing dollar I spend, turn it into a lead, turn it into a contract, and get paid for it. So I'm working really, really hard not to get in my own way on that.
Yeah, for sure. With your experience with wholesaling, what would you say is the secret sauce with that right now? Is there areas in which maybe that fits better, types of projects? What would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we've been doing it since the last quarter of last year pretty consistently. I want to say that outlining markets for us, like you were saying, you don't necessarily go into the outlining markets. We market in the outlining markets. We wholesale a lot of that stuff off. The wholesale doesn't seem to work as well in the outlining cities. And then the higher end stuff in our market, which is kind of the crossing the $300,000 threshold, doesn't seem to work as well in the wholesale. So first time, second time home buyer in the primary market, we're getting more than we would have made if we would have rehabbed it by wholesaling it. And we're literally not even lifting a broom,
Wow.
not cleaning these things out. So it's really, really nuts. It almost feels wrong. right? To buy it, throw it on the market. Yeah.
Feels so wrong. It's right. Right. You know, I could make a joke, but I'll leave it.
No.
But we have a deal that we're buying next week, and I'm kind of perplexed. I'm at a point where it's like we're buying it for $290. I could probably put it out at $375. I had a realtor give it a sniff test. She says she's got a client, they buy it all day at $375. Full retail is probably $499, right? And it needs anywhere between, we'll call it 50 and 75K. I don't know where we'd land on that, at the end of the day quite yet. So I'm looking at it like, dollars, time value of money, effort put in, all these things. It's like, it totally makes sense. And it's a little closer in, so we may very well do it. But it's just crazy that opportunity is there right now. It almost seems like we would be dumb not to capitalize on it because it's not always going to be this easy to sell stuff. That's for sure.
No, I mean, it's just kind of, it's what's going on in the market right now today. I mean, you think back in 2012, 2013, wholesaling wasn't something we could have dreamed of doing, and now the market's hot. Take advantage of it. Just keep yourself in position to, when the market changes, you have to add value to be able to add value again. That's kind of how we're looking at it. And with our hotels, our thing is, okay, we're going to close on it knowing that we can rehab it and make money. And I've kind of gotten to the point where as long as I'm not going to lose money on it, I'll kind of roll the dice a little bit. But we close on it, we throw it on the market for 10 days. If we don't get any offers in 10 days, we're going to rehab it. That's how we've been looking at it. And so far in our main market, everything we've thrown on the market, we've gotten multiple offers within that 10 days. It's gotten bid up. We sold it. So we haven't had to break down and rehab it. We've had one in the outlier market where we had to jump in and rehab it. And, it is what it is. We're going to make money on it. So I'm not too worried about it.
All right, guys, I want to take a minute here to talk with you about our Driving for Dollars app. Our Driving for Dollars app is in the iTunes Store. It's in the Google Play Store. It's free to download, and you get a 5-property free trial once you do. Now, if you like what you see and you play around with the app and you're like, you know what, I could use this in my business, which you should. It's the most cost-effective Driving for Dollars app in the market by far. But there's two $20 plans that are available right now. So you can get up to 100 skip traces for $20, or you can get unlimited list building for up to $20. And you and your team can use the app. You can create these lists and it'll skip trace them on the fly, or you can just create an unlimited number of properties on a list that then you can skip trace outside the app. We can help you with that, or you can do it on your own, and then you can market to those properties indefinitely, and you've got a tremendous asset for your business. Now, we do a ton of Driving for Dollars. I would say a good 90% of the lists that we market are purely Driving for Dollars, and then we do some layering on top of that, of course, if we have other lists to see if our Driving for Dollars leads fall on these other lists, and then we also do some layering with the way that we market to them, which is why the app skip traces for you as well and gives you all kinds of information like email address, phone number, all kinds of stuff. So if you have not already, make sure you go to the iTunes Store or the Google Play Store, depending on whether or not you have an iPhone or an Android phone. Go download the Driving for Dollars app. It's free to download. You get a 5-property free trial. Give it a test drive. See if you like it. And if you do, we have plans starting at just $20 a month. So go download it today. You're obviously on the West Coast. You're enjoying some time in Malibu. I stole you away from your time on the beach today. But I wanted to kind of chat a little bit, I guess, starting off with, you got a lot going on from what I can tell. We don't know each other that well, but we will much better after this call or this interview. But what do you got going on as far as your business setups? I know the Evangelisti companies have a whole lot of subsidiary stuff under them. I kind of looked at your website. Maybe give me a quick breakdown of what that looks like so I can kind of get a better idea, and our listeners can too.
Yeah, so basically it's broken down into our companies. We have a retail division, which is our RE/MAX. So we have traditional realtors that'll go out and list and sell houses. Our wholesale company, which will obviously wholesale contracts in the traditional way. And then our operations division, which does the rehabs, right? And they kind of all fill into each other. So, the wholesale and the retail division will actually feed into the operations section and kind of do the acquisitions piece for them. And then the operations guys will turn around and feed the retail guys when they're done flipping houses, putting stuff back on the market, putting stuff for rent, putting stuff for sale. So it's kind of a nice little ecosystem that we've built to where they all kind of function within each other under one roof.
Very cool. Was that a planned ecosystem, or did it just kind of work out that way?
Yeah, so it kind of evolved that way over many years. I started out as a broker, and I kind of determined after about 5 or 6 years as being a broker, I love sales and I was always big into it. And I just was never really comfortable in my own skin, like having to put a suit and tie on and going out and like trying to list houses and be that guy. But at the same time, I was starting to build an investment company And I used to joke around back in the day that I felt like Superman. Like I'd wake up in the morning, or Clark Kent rather, I'd wake up in the morning and I would be a flipper, and I'd have jeans and a t-shirt on. I'd go meet my subcontractors. I'd get people started during the day. I'd work on budgets and schedules and, scopes of work and proposals and get everybody working. And then sometime around noon, I'd go home, eat lunch, change into a suit and tie, go on listing appointments, be a realtor. And I was living like this double life. Like I didn't let my realtor clients know that I was a flipper, and I didn't let my subcontractors in the contracting world really get into the fact that I was a realtor full time. So I kind of felt like I was kind of living not to my unique ability and not really, 100% in one spot. And it kind of messed with me after a couple of years of doing that. So I started to realize I have to start treating this more like individual businesses. And that's really where it kind of spawned into growth, into letting these things become their own entities and building teams underneath of it and starting to have to actual scale, and actually getting systematic about things.
So that kind of the maturation process, then you obviously started, I guess, probably shifting more towards into the investment side. Did you then start your own brokerage, or how did that all kind of play out?
Yeah, I've never really got out of the brokerage business. What I did was I learned how to elevate and delegate and build teams and hire people and start to trust that people could do. Back in the day, when you're starting out, you feel like people can't replicate you, right? They're never going to be able to do it as good as me. Who's going to get up and work as hard as me? So when you start to hire employees, you start to get, nervous that they're not going to be able to achieve things. And then once you start to let go of the vine a little bit, let them start to take hold, and then you step back and you're like, wow, sometimes they do things better than you do. That's how the whole getting into the brokerage business or buying the brokerage business thing kind of happened. When I was a solo practitioner, I hired my first assistant, and she was a licensed assistant. And then I decided at one point, I had a conversation with my mentor, and I said, I think I'm just going to close this thing up. I don't want to do real estate sales anymore. And at the time, we were making pretty good money. And he said to me, you know what? You have a licensed assistant. Why not let her do everything? What's the worst that's going to happen? Is she going to fail? If she fails in a year and you have to close the doors, then what's the difference? Then, you're getting ready to close the doors right now, So, and then what happened was I said, okay, I'll give her a shot. I'll let her just 100% deal with all the clients, deal with all the headaches, deal with all the sales. And what had happened was after I walked away from it for 12 months, she actually sold more real estate than I did.
Wow.
So she was really, really good at it. And that was her unique ability. That's where she thrived, and she was comfortable and happy. So then we started to build a little bit of a team around that. And ever since I let go and gave her the reins, I haven't been involved in the sales business whatsoever. And then from there, we just kind of took it and said, okay, well, we might as well have a franchise. And I had a good opportunity with a partner of mine to open the RE/MAX branch, which we did. And from there, it just kind of blossomed. And we built a pretty significant retail sales team to actually assist in all the flips and that type of thing. So it's a good environment.
Very cool. Do they take on outside business then as well? Are they actively trying to get listings and buyers and things like that for the retail business?
Yeah, 100%. They will. They'll go out and do traditional real estate, listing appointments and so forth. I wouldn't say it's 100% our focus. I mean, they actually do prospect. We have agents on our team that'll prospect and find deals, but primarily we're focused on the investor game. We're generating motivated sellers, and we're looking for buyers that are looking for investment properties. But what happens, naturally is there's people that are looking for retail sales and retail purchases. So when that happens, we have the team that can service them, and we have the background and the ability. So there's no reason to leave that money on the table.
Yeah, that's cool. The reason I'm digging in a little bit is because for me personally here, we have our development company, and then we have our own in-house real estate company, which basically operates as kind of a net branch of a mothership company, right? And so we have one agent who's also my office manager, so he kind of does his Clark Kent Superman thing. He's the real estate agent that lists all of our projects, but he's also our office manager that does all of our lead intake and kind of qualifying and talking to sellers on the front end. My struggle that I've had with this, and we haven't expanded it because of this, is that, there's always a lot of leads that come into your business that are probably more just better suited for retail listings, right? And so the transition of taking that person that contacts your house buying business to then take them over to the retail listing side, it seems to be a tough transition with one person. And so I don't know have you noticed that, or did you guys set up a system where maybe you had different people that you could hand them off to, but within the same office to help with that? Or is that a part of the business that you've even explored?
Yeah, I think that's a lead flow process. So our lead flow happens that the call comes in, and when they're handled, it's through an appointment setter. And that appointment setter is trained on trying to qualify the lead, figure out who needs the lead. In other words, is there equity? Is it retail? Are they highly motivated? Are they not? And then she'll either put a traditional listing specialist on it, or she'll send one of our wholesale guys out there. And some of our wholesale guys actually are licensed as well. So she really is really good at trying to determine who's the best person to put on that appointment that can service the client the best. And when I say service, I mean, we're looking for solutions for the sellers. We're not always just trying to go out there and buy their house. We're trying to solve problems. So, her job on the phone is to try to understand the situation, understand the problem, and then create a solution by putting the right person on the appointment. That has to do with trying to figure out, okay, what's the best solution? Who belongs on that appointment? So I think it starts with that appointment setter, and it's definitely a different person in my point of view.
That's cool. So basically then you're selling face to face with the right person after the appointment setter kind of plinkos the lead to the right person, essentially.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a slick system. I'm glad I asked.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it obviously takes a few more people on the team. And that's what we determined too, is that there has to be a level of separation. You can't be like the Bo Jackson of real estate and do both, right? Because people are, they want to talk to you for one thing or the other. And so you got to have, the Clark Kent or the Superman, depending on what it is that they need. So,
yep.
Cool. So let's follow a lead then through your system, right? So do you guys do a fair bit of marketing outside of, just kind of realtor prospecting in order to get the phones to ring, or what does that look like?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think any real investor needs to have a multifaceted marketing approach, right? So we do a lot of, what everyone else is doing, but then I think we do some things that are outside the box. I mean, but I look at it like spokes on a wheel, your marketing campaign. I mean, you should be doing direct mail. You should be doing web leads. You should be doing purchased web leads. You should have your own website. You should be doing offers on MLS, offers on, auction websites. You should be attending some sort of sheriff sales, or whatever's going on in your local neighborhood. But you definitely should have 6 or 8 different approaches to how you acquire leads. And I think one of the biggest pieces that most people miss is the traditional old school networking, picking up the phone, calling people, actually building rapport with the people like the realtors in your neighborhood that are actually controlling deals, having conversations, asking about how their listings are going. If they're ever involved in a listing that's, too beat up to list, are they calling them first? Are they taking care of them? Are they overpaying for them to bring them the leads and so forth? So I think there's like I said, there's got to be multiple ways that you look at marketing. I think that the guys that are getting stuck in this market today are the ones that are just doing one source and then scratching their head and wondering why they can't find deals.
Right. Yeah. So I'm assuming then you're kind of pretty much doing a lot of those then that you just mentioned, or all of them.
I'm doing every one of those and probably 10 more that I'm not thinking about right now. I mean, our team is doing everything, that we can think of. And every time I think of a new thing, we'll track it. Like marketing to me is testing. And that's all it is. It's not an exact science. Every single month you're going to test something, as long as you're doing it consistently. Like you can't send a postcard and then go, oh shit, that didn't work. I'm never going to do that again. Right. Like you got to keep testing it over and over again, change the color of it, change the content, do it a certain amount of months in a row and do it consistently. And then you got to, do the same thing with your websites. But like you got to constantly be tweaking and testing and investing in your marketing and seeing what the feedback is as far as the lead flow and things like that. The fact is that most people, especially in the wholesale business or even, the rehab business, anyone who's generating leads in our business, their complaint is that I'm not doing enough business. It's probably because they're not spending enough money on their marketing. 9 times out of 10, when people call us for coaching or to come to one of our events or something like that, that's one of their biggest challenges. I can't generate enough lead flow. Well, why aren't you spending more money, or why aren't you doing more different directions? Why haven't you taken different avenues to generate more leads?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, from everybody that I've talked to as well, I see the same thing. And it really boils down to the fact that a lot of people are just afraid to spend the money. And
sure.
I think that's a big hang up that a lot of people have. But before we get too far into that rabbit hole, maybe walk me through, lead comes in, maybe kind of explain to me how it plinkos out, who touches it, and kind of the, let's say a lead comes in, you guys are going to buy it as a flip. What are the team members that touch it? Where are the handoff points? And then how does it end up back to market on the retail side?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty simple. It comes in through our appointment setter. So it comes in our Podio system. Everything comes into that, no matter what direction or angle it came in from, all those marketing channels that I just discussed. It comes into our Podio system at one point, and then the appointment setter calls it back. Discusses the situation, figures out the best solution for an appointment, or depending on the situation, could possibly offer a contract over the phone. But we don't do that very often in my market. We're usually setting appointments. Then the acquisitions manager goes out in the appointment. It could be a retail realtor to list, but generally, again, we're looking for motivated sellers, right? So we go out, we put it under contract. And then what happens when it comes back in the contract phase and goes into our transactions app, we decide in-house, are we going to keep that and rehab it, or are we going to put that out in the market and wholesale it? 99% of the time, we're going to do both. We're going to put it on the wholesale market and see if we can flip it and make cash. And then, we might take it down anyway. Or sometimes our ops team just says, no, it's too good, we want it, and we'll just keep it in-house, right? And then, of course, the ops team does their thing. They rehab it, and we go get the money, rehab it, settle it, and give it back to the retail team. And they put it back on the market as a retail listing, and we close it. And we just keep doing that like an assembly line.
Gotcha. What does your ops team in terms of the construction side look like? Do you have a project manager? Do you carry some laborers? What does that all look like?
Yeah, we have a small general contracting company. We have a project manager in-house. I have 4 or 5 guys that are on the road. I have some trucks, stuff like that. And then we have 5 or 6 full-time general contracting companies that'll work for us that will run complete projects. Our in-house project managers and our guys, our laborers in-house are really for the new construction stuff. So we got a little bit of a mix where we'll build new construction houses that are probably 800 to $1.5 million, 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. And then we have rehabs that are anywhere from 150,000 to 350,000. And that's kind of our bread and butter. So our GCs will run those. And then the new construction we run in-house. So we kind of have 2 different kind of operations going in the ops side as far as that goes. And then we have, dozens and dozens of subcontractors that are full-time, our painters and our HVACs and our electrical companies and our plumbers that literally go from, job to job to job that have been working for us for years that we have good rapport with, we have good pricing with, and they're like family to us at this point, and they get the job done and they do it right. So we trust them and we like them and we know they're going to do it the right way. So we've built a really good system around that, and they know exactly what the quality is that we want. So there's not as much oversight as there had to be, a couple years ago, which makes it really easy for our PMs to stay on top of things and keep it flowing. And they deliver, our guys are delivering 5 to 7 projects a month. So that's been consistent now for over a year. And that's kind of really the sweet spot for me. That's kind of where I like it. I don't really want to push it too far. We thought about getting bigger and bigger and bigger. For us, but we're just kind of content being where we're at and just continuing to find the best deals, just really cherry pick good deals.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat, and that's why I ask. We do a lot of new construction as well. For me personally, I found that it's a hell of a lot easier to do $1.5 to $2 million new construction house than it is to do a $200,000 to $300,000 renovation.
Yeah, no.
And so we've tailored our new construction business to, those kind of higher margin new construction products in A+ areas. But then we're balancing, the cash flow and, quick return of the project side with kind of simpler, lower dollar rehab stuff to kind of fill the voids in between. And so it's interesting to hear that you guys do the same thing, but it also sounds like you do a lot of, kind of bigger rehabs as well, but you're kind of utilizing outside GCs to kind of help run those, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I really would like to get to the point where we're using all outside GCs to manage our rehabs. It really is a lot easier for us, especially once we get the good ones in place. I'd rather pay a couple of bucks extra to have a good outside GC than to continue to hire more and more employees in-house. Because the fact of the matter is our employees could do things 3 times and, we don't know about it. Or if we do know about it, then it's rework, and I'm paying for that every single time. But a GC is a GC, right? So you lock in a contract for $45,000 and you say XYZ has to be done in 5 weeks. Then they have 5 weeks. One of his guys has to do something 3 times, and he's paying for it, not me. And I'd rather have that. I'd rather have that on the GC. But that's the downside for him. The upside is he can get it done in 4 weeks, and he can do it right, and he can save time and money, and he can make more money. So I think that it works in both people's favor if everything goes according to plan and they get good at what they do. And we do have some really good GCs that had a schedule and really tightened things up and learned exactly what we're the for. And I think the better the communication and the more deals we do together, the more we both make in profit at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a great outlook on it. Another big hang up that I think a lot of investors have is cheaper is better. But like you said, it's better. Number one, they haven't gotten to the point where you're carrying a lot of guys and you're paying them 8 times to do the same thing over and over again. But, if you find a good guy, you pay him a few more bucks. He gets it done right. He gets it done quick. And especially with the rehabs, it takes a hell of a lot of management off of your plate. And, then you can focus your time on actually continuing to build your business or refining the types of projects you're taking on, things like that.
100%.
Very cool.
Yep.
All right, guys, I want to take a quick second here to take a break from the show and talk to you about our Deal Finders Academy, or the DFA, as I often refer to it. Now, it's the original online mastermind group in this space that we call real estate investing. We started it about 5.5 years ago, and we've still got a ton of our original members from 5.5 years ago, which has to say something, right? But at its core, it's an amazing group of people that are from all over the country that are doing this business every single day. You get question and answer, you get advice, you can throw up a scenario, and you can get 5, 10, 15, 20 people giving you advice on how to handle it, just like that, almost instantaneously. It's an amazing resource to be able to have. It's a fantastic community. We've got a ton of great people. I've made so many great friendships from having the DFA. I can't even count how many, honestly. And I know many other people feel the same way. So if you are interested in joining us, it's a very, very inexpensive mastermind group to be a part of. It's only $199 a month. There's no contract. And the best part is we don't stack people on top of each other. So that means the competitive advantages remain competitive advantages, and you can use them in your exact marketplace. So we get a kind of a detailed rundown of exactly where it is that you're going to operate, and that way we don't allow people to come into the group that are going to operate in that exact same area, and then that way everybody can flourish that much more. So there aren't many other groups out there that do that. We've remained very committed to keeping an exclusive group and making sure that all those competitive advantages benefit those people that are in the DFA. So we would love to have you as a part of it. We're trying to add some more people to those areas that we have space. So reach out to us today. Go to the dealfindersacademy.com. From there, all you got to do is book a call with Dan. He'll chat with you. We'll see if we have space and if it's a good fit. And if it is, we'd love to make you a part of our DFA mastermind group. So the main, I guess, drivers of your daily business, real estate-wise, it looks like venture real estate, and then you've got a realty company attached to that as well?
Yeah, exactly. We're actually transitioning all of our different companies. We have Ohio Cash Buyers, which is obviously the direct-to-public cash buyer company. Venture Real Estate is kind of our in-house flipping retail company. But yeah, we did buy Keynote Realty, so we're transitioning everything over to a Keynote name now. So.
Gotcha. So that was an existing business then that you purchased?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I've been part of that. Well, I'm sorry, I've worked with the guy, and I've been part of it, but I've worked with that broker for the last 10, 11 years, and he was retiring, and it was a good opportunity for me to buy it out and kind of take over the torch there. So,
very cool.
I'm 25, 26 years old now, total.
Wow. So did it come with a good number of agents?
No, actually, he had stripped it down to where he was REO only, and that's part of the reason he retired. He was, REO's dying.
Ah, okay. I get it now. I get it. Okay. All right.
And with 3 agents, and I let 2 of those go just because they were a liability versus an asset as far as performance each year.
Okay, so I connected the dots for Mr. Anson Young. He was curious. So that makes a lot of sense. You bought some relationships, essentially, is what it amounts to.
Yeah, I bought that goodwill and that local name brand that everybody recognizes.
Yeah, okay. Very cool. Give me kind of an overview. I'm curious how you got into this business, first of all, and how long you've been doing it, and then we can kind of transition to kind of what the overall structure of your money-making real estate business looks like now. But how'd you get into it starting out?
Yeah, definitely. I sold a computer business in Florida in 2003, just a little small thing, and I moved back to Illinois, spent some time with the wife's parents for a while. About 03, 04, I moved back to Ohio, which is where I grew up, a little tiny town called Middletown, Ohio, which is right between Cincinnati and Dayton. So grew up there, kind of didn't know anything about construction at the time. My whole family was in construction, but I hated them, so I intentionally avoided it. And when I got back, just started looking at some of what my brother was doing, some projects, watching some tile jobs going on, stuff like that. And he sucked at it, so I was like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing. These tile lines are terrible. I'm a perfectionist. What's going on here? So kind of picked him apart and joked around with him a bit. And then really, developed a knack for construction, just loving the transformation process of seeing the old ugly linoleum go to a nice new tile. And that's kind of what started becoming a GC back then. So, 03, I started learning every trade I could, doing all the hands-on work. 04, kind of ramped that up a little bit more. Took on outside projects, worked with subcontractors, started really ramping that up. So as of then, I started flipping, it was small. It was 5, 10, 15, 20, just depending on the year there, properties per year, mostly 10 to 20. And as that ramped up, building towards the crash, 07, 08 there, I was growing bigger and bigger, doing lots more flips. And a lot of the agents that I was already working with came to me and started saying, hey, REO, would you like to service REO properties for clients, all the biggest banks, Wells Fargo, Chase, First Financial, and those other local banks as well. So we really delved into that and kept growing the company that way. And as that happened, we had built up to 80, 90, 100 something flips by 07, 08, and we kind of slowed those down and went whole hog on the REO side of things. So there was never really any goal on each side. We just kind of worked with all of the crews we had and took on the most amount of flow we could. So when REOs were giving me way too many projects for the week, we'd slow down flips, and when it was vice versa, we'd put those crews back on my flips. So.
Very cool. So then we're in 08, we're in 09. At what point did you then ramp back into the flipping side of things, or did you just continue to service the REO business and then just kind of added on to the company and grew it so that you could start flipping again, or how did that work?
Yeah, there was never a time I didn't flip. So like I said, even in the 08, 9, 10, 11, it was still 30, 40, 50 flips a year. Gosh, I can think of a million of them that we're selling 180, 190. We bought them at 60, 65. So as long as we're still buying right, sure, it took a little longer to sell. Yeah, you had to give more concessions. Yeah, you may only have 3 showings, whereas today you'd have 30. But I really never had the problem of selling, because you still have all the natural people that just need to move here. A new police officer transitioning district needs to buy a new home, and we're always selling the 150, 180, 220 kind of range of homes that everybody can afford, so we never really suffered too bad there. So yeah, during all those years, right up through all of it, we maintained all of our flips. I'd say we ramped them back up pretty heavily again, heading towards the 100 and crossing it in 2012, 2013 again is when we really got back up there. So
yeah,
we kept the REO as the primary focus still, but every compartment, every department grew there. So
yeah, I mean, and 100 flips a year, that's a lot. But I do remember back, we listed one at the end of 08, beginning of 09, and like you said, maybe you didn't have 30 showings, but you had 3 in an offer. We sold a few at the end of 08, 09 that were retail flips, and stuff was still selling. And then, of course, they put the big tax credit that came in for first-time buyers, and that helped stimulate things as well. But yeah, things definitely sold. You just had to kind of adjust price expectations, and the way it always works, right? Everything sells at a price.
Exactly, yeah. If it was 169.9, I'd list today. Back then, I'd be 159.9, and get a nice offer, be 3-4% below market. Today, I'm pushing that 179.9, of course, and getting it. So yeah, definitely less, but of course, I'm paying far less, so it all evened out.
Right. So let's fast forward then to today. You started growing exponentially again in terms of the number of flips that you did. Maybe not exponentially, but you ramped it up starting 2012, 2013, as you mentioned. Today, what does your business, I guess, conglomeration look like in terms of being able to handle that type of volume? And then are you also doing GC work on the side still, or have you phased that out completely?
Yeah, we phased out entirely. I technically retired 2015. May 2015, I retired from all of the REO, all the GC stuff. I let that go. And even before that, we had phased out all of our direct-to-consumer, retail type of projects in 2013, I think it was. They were just too much hassle. The dog meeting let out at 5 p.m. and too much dust and all those things. So,
right.
We went 100% REO through those periods. And then, like I said, May 2015, I retired from that entirely. And I'd say that's when we really put the screws to it and started focusing on what was next. And I actually retired then. The goal was to do 2 things at once. I retired 2015 from everything, took about 4 or 5 months off and did nothing, and then I met a partnership that I ended up getting back in. But even during retirement, I was still just working from my home office. My version of retirement's a little different than most, I guess. I still want to work forever.
What does, I guess, the business look like that kind of runs essentially without you at this point, right?
Yeah, it's, there's still a lot of input. We're just now systematizing a lot of new things, fixing Podio, that's an eternal struggle, but yeah, lots of stuff like that. So what it really looks like is everybody being extremely accountable for their own job. The sales managers, the acquisitions, the dispositions, the transaction coordinators. I have a tendency to want to step in and kind of oversee them and be a perfectionist and blah, blah, blah. And I've really had to just take a step back from that and let them learn and fail on their own within our principles and our guidelines, of course, and it's made them better faster. So we've got a couple superstars that are just really top-notch folks. The whole team is, of course, but we've got a couple that are just killing it right now. And they're kind of making that transition much easier for me. I can sit back and watch what they do, oversee a few KPIs each day. And, like I said, the days that I want to chime in and work a 14-hour day, I still do. And the days that I don't want to see it for 2 days straight, I don't. So that's kind of where it is now.
I'm assuming you probably had some struggles at some point finding these superstars, right? Because that's kind of the key to a lot of the, having success at the level that you're having it.
and others, of course, too. But have you tried to make them kind of entrepreneurs within the business? Has that helped with that?
Definitely. We not only give them a salary, and we tell every employee that comes in day one, hey, look, your salary is $1. You get $1. What you earn from there is totally up to you. And of course, that's a joke. We do have to give them a base salary.
Right.
If anybody comes in and they're still happy with that salary 3-4 months later, we get rid of them. It's just not going to be the fit. We need hungry, dedicated people that want more for their life and in turn, of course, more for our business. So day one, we're asking them questions much more like, what are your dreams? What are your goals? How will working here help you fulfill those goals? Because if this is just another job and just another $3,000 salary increase to come to us, you'll leave us just as quickly for somebody else offering $3,000 more, and we don't want you. So, yeah, it definitely was a lot of struggle, lots of problems. Definitely took a long time to get where we are with hiring, for sure.
So then in terms of like the critical members of the team, what does that look like? I mean, everybody's a must-have, but let's say the ones that really make the wheel go round every day in terms of bringing in inventory, the disposition side, things like that. What does that look like?
Yeah, those are probably our 4 critical people. So number 1 is Tony. He's our acquisitions guy. He's my best friend. That's kind of how I brought him in. We were best friends for 3-4 years before I brought him in, so I knew all about him. And he actually came in as a couple different things, rehab manager and all that stuff. And we found out, man, he sucks at being a rehab manager. He's extremely detailed, but he does not have the psychology to deal with contractors and get stuff done on time all day long. So from there, we moved him to sales. And that was kind of I would say he's the key integral members, simply because I was the only one that I really trusted in the organization to do sales at my level. That is one of my gifts that I love, whereas organization and other stuff is not. So sales was my thing, and I always worried about finding somebody that could do as good as me there. And he's already 85-90% as good as me, and I think he'll probably just be 100% or better within a year, a little more training. So needless to say, he's walking into Dealz with a $90,000 ask and leaving the house at $35,000. He's really learning the stuff. And I'm glad we had the struggles with him and the trajectory that he had, because he started learning all of the rehab stuff to my specs, to my perfectionism. Now that serves him well going and meeting with somebody that, somebody else just left the house and said, oh, you got a $10,000 rehab. And he's able to quickly say, well, that's great, but how are we going to fix this foundation, roof, windows, siding, and 8 other things for $10,000? If you can find that guy for me, I'd love to hire him. Let me know. So
right.
He's number 1. Number 2 is definitely Darren. He's our dispositions guy. He's just as awesome on the other end. He will make 10 million cold calls a day to chase down leads and chase down people selling this stuff. And of course, he's working on building bigger buyers lists and getting new types of buyers that I didn't already have in my system, and a lot of other things. But yeah, that's kind of the fact is he's hungry, so he really does well there. That was all network stuff. Those were referrals. Then we've got Cindy that was outside of the network, but she was the executive admin for the number 2 in command at Procter & Gamble, the next lady that was ready to step up and be the CEO of Procter & Gamble. So not only that, she was also one of the regional managers here for a Walmart branch. And I said, well, if you can put up with a demanding CEO lady and you can put up with crazy people at Walmart all day, you can definitely deal with me. So I brought her in 5 months ago now as my executive admin. And that's been, I'd say, the biggest change, because, yeah, sales are great, all that other stuff, but the organization of the office is massively different now. And that's what I always struggle with, because I'm not that detailed, organized guy at all. And then, like I said, several other team members that are all different areas, different versions. We have a few remote workers. We have my sister-in-law working for me. We have my sister in the mail department. Lots of different things there. But I'd say those 3 roles there are probably the key that is different today than it was 2 years ago.
What is the project management side of your business? Are you hiring GCs, or are you managing internally with your own contractor's license at this point? What does that look like for your rehab side?
I don't use mine at all. We actually have a new rehab project manager that's been doing this. He ran large companies before. He's coming to us January 5th. So that's when Tony will step back into full-time sales. Right now, he's still kind of straddling both.
Okay.
But yeah, we hire basically all GCs at kind of sub rates. We don't really pay them GC rates. Ohio can't really afford that, unfortunately. So they're not really the overseeing kind of GC. They're more of your standard guy that's good on site, has a crew of 4, they can do everything, because we still piece in all of the, security components you'd want to say. And by that, I mean, I want my roofer to do the roof, not some random GC I hired that, yeah, he does roofs, but when I have a warranty claim in 3 years, where's he? We fired him. So I give all roofs to one guy, all flooring goes to our one team, all, electric, all HVAC. So, yeah, they're doing a lot. They're working all of these other subs in, but we hire them directly and manage them directly. So our GC on site's not really responsible for everything.
Right, which I think is a good way to go. I mean, our setup is very similar. We sub out the majors, I guess, as I call them, something else, but same idea, right? If somebody calls up in a couple of years and they said my roof's leaking or the furnace is out and it was brand new construction, a new furnace, we're not sending our in-between labor guy over to try and figure it out. We have a subcontractor that's all they do every day, that is servicing their own business and will very likely help us service our clients as well. So that's definitely a smart way to go, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
So then in terms of what's your volume of deals look like that the company's cranking out, you've got kind of two different types of deals, it sounds like. You've got your rehab retail type deal, and then you've got your kind of wholesale cash flow type deal, right? Is that kind of the two different paths that deals come in and go out in your company?
Exactly, yeah. 3 or 4 right now. So we have the normal retail deals, fix and flips, and we have wholesale where we're going in doing $1 to $3 grand, tossing it right back on the market, or tossing it out to a network. Wholesale, we don't do very much at all, just because of Ohio laws and because we close on everything. We don't really assign contracts. I never have in my life, actually. We will pass some deals on to investors and other stuff, but it's really still a double close. We close, then we market later. And the other biggest thing that we're honestly ramping up is just our own internal holds, multifamily, single family, nice B+, A-class stuff. We're adding a lot more, and that's kind of part of what we offer as being part of our team when we say entrepreneurs and incentivizing people. We're bringing them in, and every quarter we do one flip deal, whatever house it is that we pick, and then we all split the profits among the team evenly there. No seniority required, nothing else. And, so then we do that. We offer them good discounts on adding to their own rental portfolio, stuff like that. So
that's cool.
I'd say the rental side is definitely something we've ramped up majorly, and truly it just came about because I was already doing it for myself anyway, and we were buying a ton of inventory for the turnkey business. So when we stopped that, we still had this good inventory coming in, so we've just added it to ourselves. Whether we keep it 20 years, whether we sell it later once we revitalize the turnkey company, haven't really figured that out yet, but it's there either way. So.
Gotcha. What do the rental numbers look like? I've talked to Shannon quite a bit about Cincinnati numbers, and they seem pretty crazy. I know Cleveland was a hotbed for some of the turnkey companies for a while, may still be. But what kind of rent to value numbers are you getting? Is it easily 1% a month, or what is it that you shoot for when you...
For 1.2, and we aim for a C+ to an A class for the client, and that's going to vary cap rate just on what they want. We do have a lot of people that want C class, and our typical C class, C+, I should say, is looking, 70, 75 grand for a 950 to 1,000 rent. So we're pretty easily hitting the 1.2. And then, of course, you go on up scale. We have one that we just sold to a cash buyer for $230. That's A+ class, and they'll be lucky to rent it for $1,900, so they're not coming anywhere close to 1%. So
right.
It kind of varies within there. And I could go down to D class, have a $35,000 rental and almost match the C+ class stuff at an $850 or $900 rent, but we just avoid it. Just too many hassles there.
Yeah, the pain in the ass factor is not worth it a lot of the times.
Yeah, you got a really good cap rate and ROI on paper, but it's all fake as soon as they do $6 grand in damage, and you've lost 2 years of net profit. So, yeah, not worth it.
Exactly. That and pets, right? So,
yep.
So then obviously with this large of an operation, in terms of the fix and flip side, what do you think approximate volume of the retail and wholesale type stuff that you're selling out to end users, whether it be retail or some type of investor? What kind of volume do you guys think you'll wrap up with this year?
Our total deals for the year will be somewhere 210, 220, I would say, for total deals. And out of that, 35 to 40% will be actual fix and flip, full retail. And then the wholesale will be another 20, 25, 30%. And I don't track those metrics as good as I should. I don't really have an exact number, but that's just kind of how it flows in my brain for now.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Or, stuff we're keeping internally, stuff we're passing on, wholesale-ish kind of double close, and a few other, specialty niche cases there where we're providing inventory for somebody similar to turnkey, but they've got their own management company now, and we don't have to deal with that. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, that's overall, I'd say 70% total end up either retail or wholesale.
Okay, so with that kind of volume then, what does your capital situation look like? And not to pry personally, but just in terms of funding the company, for me, that's been a big struggle here because we have, not a big struggle, but it's a big point of emphasis for me because we have such big numbers here that I have to raise a lot of money. What's that look like for you, and how have you managed to grow your company and continue to expand your capital base?
Yeah, it's easy for me, like you said, in Ohio. I mean, some of our lower-end deals are 80, 100, 120, 150 grand. Our flips typically start at 125 and up, and, they rarely exceed 400. I think I've got 2 in the 350 range right now, so not very high. So really the answer is I just saved for so long of my own capital and built the company back then, especially with flips and REO money, that I was 100% self-funded for a long time. I didn't really need the money, but I kind of started seeing about a year and a half, 2 years ago, okay, there's going to be a day where I do want to take down a $9 million apartment building, and I don't want to have that much liquid capital into it myself. So let's go get some private money, and that's what I've done. I kind of, did a private money broadcast out there, connected with a few people, met up with a few different sources, things like that. And some of the turnkey clients even turned into it, referred to some other people. So instead of having the dozens and dozens, I have 5 or 6 that routinely have, anywhere from $500,000 up to $3-4 million. And some of them are flying out. They flew out a week ago just to say, hey, Bryan, I'm here for 2 hours. How can I spend more money with you? Because it's really that balance is I don't need them right now, but you have to keep them entertained and keep them earning their money or they're not going to be there when you need them. So now I have no need for them at all. But, I'm paying the interest and all that other good stuff just to keep them around. So they're always loving it, of course. So, they're always asking to spend more and more and refer more people. So it's really a tough balance to give away free interest that you don't need to give away. So, the short answer is.
I hear you completely. We've got probably about $5 million of private capital that we pay on whether it's deployed or not, just to keep people happy and keep the relationships, moving forward. So it's always a delicate balance. And then obviously, I've capitalized a lot of the company with my own cash as well, but I've got to keep people happy. And I tend to move to the secondary on that list sometimes to keep money happy so that we can continue to grow. But I was just curious, and it sounds like same type of tightrope walking that we do here. You're doing to some extent. So then in terms of inventory sources, are you still very heavily, I won't call it reliant, but we'll say the heaviest flow of deals comes directly from kind of asset manager relations still, or is there anything outside of that that's feeding your machine?
We do kind of what everybody else does. Asset manager is definitely our number one thing. It's still 65-70% of deals overall, typically. The other 30, 35, 40 is all of the, PPC, all the direct mail, lots of niche lists, lots of cold calling. Like I said, that's where that great sales guy comes in, and everybody needs that guy that's not afraid to go cold call. So, just chasing down, very specific niche lists that revolve around some kind of life event is a great one, of course, divorce, bankruptcy, probate, all that different stuff. And then, just some other customized kind of proprietary equity filters and different things we do there to build with. So
Gotcha.
That's what I have focused a lot more of my time on. I'm not mailing to the absentee 70% equity that everybody else is, of course. So I've really spent a lot of my time kind of looking at where the data actually comes from, looking at who the next in line to sell that doesn't really have a flag out there that even needs to sell today, visibly to the public, is coming from. So I'm focusing a lot more of my time on there versus the actual busy work in the office and, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. So you're focusing on where the puck eventually is going is what you're telling me.
Exactly, yeah. Focusing on what's going to be sustainable going into 18 when inventories are massively down, nothing's on the MLS for us to buy, that kind of stuff. So,
Gotcha.
We're in that next hidden source of deals. And being a GC, it's great. I mean, we're able to take on fire damage, flood damage, mold. We're able to take on a lot of stuff that most of the people are avoiding. So we've always got a lot more irons in the fire than your standard wholesaler that doesn't know how to diagnose a house correctly.
Yeah, well, that is true. So it sounds like Tony's pretty much, he's your hardcore hustler then on the phone too, as far as shaking down these people cold calling or following up with leads and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we customize the list. Like I said, once we get them in, we know it's a good lead typically. So it's really just a price objection at that point. If we can get them where we want them, we know the motivation's there and the need to sell. So yeah, exactly. Tony is really good at diagnosing exactly why they need to sell. And sometimes that's money, and sometimes that's solving some other major problem, and he's good at figuring that out. Yeah. I've put him through some training ringers there myself. I've sent him to some outside courses. There's lots of different things there, but he's done very, very well with it.
Well, he sounds like he's a good right-hand man to have in terms of the sales department. For sure. That's for sure. And so lastly, in terms of the company setup, vertical integration with other companies, you obviously have a GC license that's attached to it in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes you use it, sometimes you don't. Now you have a real estate company as well, which I'm assuming does all of your listings and sales for the dispositions on your retail stuff, right?
Mm-hmm, correct.
So that was obviously planned, I assume, right?
Yeah, definitely. We've used him for the last 10, 11 years, so I figured I've given him away millions of dollars already. I may as well own that machine, So yeah, we brought that in-house.
Yeah, that's one thing that we've done too. Here, obviously, we have higher price points. Our volume is significantly lower than yours, but there's a lot of, rehabbers and builders that build in the higher price points or rehab there, and they're handing away a lot of money every year. And so that was one thing that we brought in under our umbrella as well. And I'm really glad that we did, obviously. And it also helps with our branding too, which I'm sure you found out, it helps expand your branding. So
Very cool. So kind of segue in here. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but what would you say? Yeah, I know you're quasi, we'll call it in air quotes, retired right now, but basically meaning you're working on the parts that you like to work on and nothing else. But what have been your biggest challenges over the last couple of years in terms of being a real estate business owner?
The biggest thing, honestly, is coming from the guy that was in the field all day, or at least worked more in depth with the rehab estimators, the QC guys that were in the field for me every day. Letting some of that go, not seeing the quality as much out there, being a perfectionist, that's been very tough. Finding somebody that has your same principles and practices around rehab quality and the product you're putting on the market was just the biggest thing for me, because I'm not doing it for money anymore. Yeah, the money's great. I'm looking for that higher purpose. I'm looking to transform neighborhoods, to build wealth for others and not just myself. So making sure somebody is not taking something that I'm not even doing for money anymore and then using it to destroy my name, tossing out a crappy product, was really my biggest leap of faith for sure. The other growing pains, of course, are just the fact that I am a, ADHD, high-functioning kind of guy that wants to focus on my thing and go 10 million miles an hour. So for a long time, honestly, I was working, 7 a.m. to midnight to grow the business back in the day, and that's been many years ago, but I was willing to make that commitment. So when, some of the employees were, 6 o'clock, I'd really like to leave for the day and go play softball and this and that. I'm like, man, that's not a mindset I come from. So wrapping my head around that family time, that company enjoyment, that work-life balance, that was very tough for me, which made hiring very tough. Some of my ads back in the day weren't very nice ads at all. So, of course, I wasn't attracting the right kind of people. So by that, I mean, I used to post in my ads, if your wifey is going to call you at 7 o'clock, that's what time you'll be home for dinner. Don't even bother applying. So that was one of my rhetorical lines I put in every ad. So I found ways to soften that. I found ways to get us all home at 6:30, make it a much better work-life balance in the last year and a half, I'd say. So
I think that's a big challenge that a lot of us as business owners face. I still battle with that, honestly. I mean, because it's our mind kind of runs rampant at times, right? And we can't really turn it off. When we get focused on wanting to build something, we kind of get tunnel vision, and we kind of take for granted that not everybody gets tunnel vision the same way that we do and can understand it. But it sounds like, it's kind of the typical self-employment type challenges. And then, of course, one thing I've noticed, and I don't know, maybe this is just kind of a side thought, but it seems to me that some of the most successful entrepreneurs have some form of ADHD. Is that not something you've noticed as well?
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, if you're not able to juggle things, answer stuff quickly, hop onto the next thing, and you're stuck, following one trail down all day long until it's done. You never jump off the launch pad. You never get anywhere at all. You're still thinking and over-calculating. So, yeah, the ADHD guys, it's like, well, learned enough about that. Let's go. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's implement. Let's put it out there. Yeah, he may fail a few times, but he's going to learn a hell of a lot faster than somebody else that's thinking all day. So.
Yeah, it's just funny that that's a big negative when we're younger, right? That's the way it's framed to us. And then I've never been diagnosed at all, and I'm not saying that I am or not, but I have noticed that some of the most successful people I know seem to very much have that. So, interesting dynamic nonetheless.
Guys, hopefully you enjoyed this week's show. Like I said, we tried to pull the best out of all three of those interviews, bring it back to the surface, and hopefully it was in bite-sized, consumable, or easy-to-consume chunks, and you guys got a lot of value out of it. So, without further ado, I'm going to leave you this week, but before I do, of course, I always have a closing success quote, and this week's quote, I won't say it's a success quote, but we'll call it a successful content quote, right? For those of you guys that are out there making content, which is basically everybody that's on social media these days. I saw this quote and I was like, you know what? That's a good one. I like it. And, made me think. So I'm going to repeat it on this week's show. And the quote is, bad decisions make for great stories. And great stories makes for even better content. I kind of added to it, but you get the point. All right, guys, this is episode 293. I'll see you all on the flip side.